17. And then I think people will trickle in as we kind of get going here. So let me just see. I'm going to promote Deputy Keene, if that's all right with you, Sean.
Sure.
So there he is. Hi, Deputy. Oh, there.
How you doing? Hi, Mike.
Good, Deputy Keene. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you.
Great, great. Well, we're going to get started here, and I think people will trickle in. My name is Michael Toole. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen. I have Chief Sean Simmons and Deputy Chief Keene with us this evening. I can't say that this is probably revolutionary, but I can't remember an update like this being done before. It really does come from when I was running for selectman. There were a lot of questions specifically around Chartley, and it was, and I'll let Chief Simmons speak in a minute, but what I found out is how much was going on at the fire department that I'm not sure the public knew about. So I wanted to kind of share all the information and wanted to share the information with the public. So I figured this was one of the things that COVID has taught us. Obviously, makes it a lot easier to get people and get information out there. So I'm excited to have you gentlemen on, talk about some of the issues. I don't think it's going to be an overly long meeting, but for the purposes of the purposes of the call, we have two ways you can ask a question. You can either write it below in the questions and answers section, or if you want to raise your hands, I'll be glad to call on you on that end. And I'll just kind of keep kind of scanning through the crowd to see if they've raised their hands. Yeah, actually, I think it's mostly done through the question and answers. And if I see one, I'll call on you. If you want to raise your hand as well, we can go from there. But so let's get started. But thank you, gentlemen, for coming on board and doing this meeting and kind of updating the public on what's going on. I know the subjects that I had spoken to Sean and you, Deputy Keene, were talking first of all about the current state of the fire department. I know you guys have a lot of new hires going on. Want to talk about the grant program and then possibly finish up with the Chartley Fire Station, and then also the Regional Support Center. And I believe we might be having someone coming on board with them to talk to us about that as well. Is that correct, Sean?
That's correct, sir. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So let's if you gentlemen could maybe start us off with to get a better sense of how many calls you have, how busy you guys, what's going on with the current, well, obviously, I know you guys aren't saying that COVID has not made it your times less exciting. So maybe you can give us kind of an overview of what's going on at the fire department. How many calls do you guys do on an average annually or weekly or anything? Maybe you can kind of start out that way.
Yeah, sure. On average, we respond to over 4,000 calls for service. About 2,200 of those calls are emergency medical calls. The rest of them are a combination between fire alarms, fires, car accidents, inspections, pretty much anything else that you could think of. So last year we had 6 structure fires. One that a lot of people might have realized, we had a 5-alarm mill fire. That was pretty significant, required 11 communities to come in and provide mutual aid. Another 12 outside agencies to help support that operation. So that, operation went well. We had one minor injury. Other than that, it went pretty well. That's pretty much about it for our,
You guys have started. You guys have also started a new program I know it was one of the things recently that came up is it the CLC program, or I know I'm probably masking the title, where you're actually making visits regarding COVID, and
Yeah, there's
can
definitely
you talk a little bit about that program, and then some of the other things, maybe Deputy, you can also talk about some of the things, how you're reacting to COVID, and what the fire department, how you handling the safety, the public, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so there's definitely plenty of acronyms to go around in the fire service. You kind of get a couple of them mixed together, maybe there. I don't know. But I think the one that you're referring to is the MIH program.
That's actually
It stands for Mobile Integrated Health. So what we're doing with that, we started that about 6 months ago. And COVID, a lot of bad things with COVID, but this kind of let some of the restrictions down to allow us access to be able to do that. Previous to that, it was a $70,000 fee just to apply for a license to be able to go out and do this mobile integrated healthcare. So basically what we're doing is the COVID patients that are really sick or at high risk, we get notified by the hospital and they request a visit. So when we do that, we have 1 or 2 paramedics go out and they evaluate them with a whole bunch of different parameters, and they actually FaceTime the physician and and basically take care of them however they need to support them. So the goal is to try to stop them from deteriorating and to get them better. Usually around that 5 to 8 day range. A lot of people take a turn for the worse, so it's to try to catch them at that time frame.
Yeah, and that's, I know, we've talked about it a lot. Especially on a lot of the elderly, where they just don't know what their condition is. Should they be going to their athletic fusion? But I also, tell me if I'm wrong. Could this also help with the vaccinations as well coming up later on down the road? I know it may not be rolled out for that exactly right now, but it seems almost like they're preparing you guys possibly that they may say, all right, maybe handle some vaccinations, specifically on the elderly or those who can't get out.
Yeah, we communicate frequently, especially never more since COVID came out with all the Board of Health members, specifically the Board of Health director and town nurse. They're great people. They're doing a lot of work and an awesome job trying to deal with this. I know they're working hard to get vaccinations out to the public. We've had a bunch of conversations about logistics and stuff like that, and they know that from a fire department perspective, we're here to support them however we can. So whether that's having people go out and help give vaccinations or whatever, we'll try to support them, however we can. So,
changing directions. So how long have you been chief now? Chief Schleicher retired how long ago?
Yeah, what time is it? Let's see. No, it's been probably about 1.5 years or so.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
Maybe a little less than that. Yeah.
And then the leadership team was Deputy Keene and you have
Deputy Robbins.
Deputy Robbins.
Yep.
Deputy Keene, how long have you been with the Norton Fire Department?
Oh, since July 1976.
Oh, you started when you were 5. I see. Good.
Right out of high school.
There you go. And I know that the Deputy Chief Robbins position is a new position. Maybe Deputy Chief, you can explain what you do, and then Chief Simmons, maybe you can explain what. I know Jay Robbins wanted to be on. He just couldn't do it for personal reasons. But maybe you could talk about how they've broken up the assignments, Deputy.
Yeah, right now. When I first came in the office, I was doing policies and day-to-day operations and fire prevention, and trying to keep up with all that. Especially our policies are over 20 years old and need to be updated, so it takes a lot of work with that. So it was great that we were able to get the other deputy's position. And so Deputy Robbins, he's out doing the day-to-day inspections and fire prevention. Also with the new dispatch center coming on, he's been spending a lot of time with that. And there's been a lot of things we had to catch up on. There's a lot of changes we had to get acclimated to, and we're still working out the bugs. As far as my side of it, a lot of it is grants, day-to-day operations, and policies. And like I say, the policies are 20 years old, so that takes a lot of work to go through them. And we were able to get this program, Chief Simmons, with the help of Chief Schleicher back a couple of years ago, we were able to get this program, Lexapol, and that's been a big help. But again, it's time-consuming work.
What is Lexi, Paul?
It's policies that are online. It's a program that we have a right to. We pay a couple $1,000s a year to, and so I go in and look at the policies that they have that people across the United States all use, and then we acclimate it to our operations. So I make changes, and then once the chief and I review it and are satisfied with the policy, I can hit a button and it sends it out to all the firefighters, and then they sign off that they've received the policy and they understand it.
That's great. I know the department's fallen under a lot of new regulations. I know, when I came on board, I kind of, when I sat down with Chief Simmons, I went through, all right, explain to me how your staff was, and specifically yours, because the new deputy wasn't full-time yet. Sorry, the new deputy wasn't full-time yet. Specifically, and then he showed me the list of what you were doing, Deputy Key, and I was like, one person can't do all that. He's like, oh yeah, that's why
One of the other things we've been working on is OSHA. Now we're in OSHA states. Yeah. That we're working on that policy. I have probably about 50 pages just for OSHA to work on alone.
Yeah, I know, and I know that had been pushed off a little bit because it was bandwidth. You didn't have enough bandwidth to kind of implement it. So I know that's an important thing. That's a mandate for the department, and I'm glad that we've been able to do that. Chief Simmons, can you maybe talk a little bit about what we know that the day-to-day Deputy Chief Robbins is doing the day-to-day. Maybe you can kind of expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, Deputy Robbins does a lot to do with fire prevention. So he's responsible for code enforcement, plan review, pre-construction meetings, inspections and permitting. He kind of manages our incident reporting system, pre-fire plans, public safety education, our SAFE program. He's a dispatch, our liaison to regional dispatch, as well. So.
Oh, that's I know that
Deputy Keene, but both Deputy Keene and Deputy Robbins are also able to kind of backfill each other if something comes up and one of them's not around too. So it's a huge asset in that regard as well.
No, absolutely. It's I would remind anyone if they have any questions. To be honest with you, I don't know if you can raise your hands, but if you can, I'll call on you. But if you have any questions, just put them in the question and answer on the lower bar, and I can promote you, and you can ask the question, and we'll get those answered.
The other thing, if I could comment on is,
absolutely.
We have this a permit process, and so every day we get requests for permits from the building inspector. But myself and Deputy Robbins, a lot of work, especially with like an island went online. Deputy Chief Miles started with that, then it went to Deputy Chief Simmons, and then it fell into my hands. And that's a $300 million project. We had to hire consultants. It was a very interesting project. A lot of work on everybody's side, including the towns. And then now we have Blue Star down on Leonard Street, so that takes up a lot of time. Those aren't small projects. Those aren't just inspections of small businesses. That takes a lot of work. We have good staff, the other captains that work with us, and the lieutenants.
Yeah, and I think I think one of the things that happens is I think people don't think, they just think you're there for the safety portion. There is a business component to the fire department. And I think that's one of the things that I was excited to see, that we may have been missing some of the business opportunities to kind of spin that with inspection. It wasn't that the work wasn't getting done, but it was just not getting, maybe it was late, maybe it was pushed back or so forth. So I'm excited to see that happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of codes that, fire codes that go into these projects and have to be researched. It takes a lot of time.
Right. I do see one question. We're going to, as we said, talk a little bit further. I'm going to push that back until the Charlie station. It was talking about kind of response times and so forth. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, and I will kind of go from there. Okay. But I will absolutely make sure every question that we get is going to be answered. I guess one of the other questions that I have, is how many men and women? Oh, that is horrible. Me, you jump right to men. How many men and women do you have currently have on the force?
So, we have 36 positions on the department. Unfortunately, right now we have 6 openings, just due to injuries and retirements over the past few years. We also had a person transfer to another department not that long ago. We recently just hired 4 people, so we're really excited about that. We've got some good people. Hiring people has been extremely challenging, even prior to COVID, and COVID just has not helped that at all, to be honest with you. Now, we did hire those people, but we cannot count them towards manpower yet because they haven't even started the fire academy. So not only to get them hired is difficult, but the fire academy is also, it's always a wild card. You can get a date 2 months after you hire somebody if you kind of get lucky, or it could take 8 or 9 months to get somebody a spot in the academy, and then almost 3 months for them to go through that. And then you're looking at pretty much a year after you hire them, they can actually count toward manpower. So.
Yeah, I know you recently, to expand the force, you recently applied for a grant that came out of one of the assignments of the new position as well. Talk a little bit about the grant, the employee grant.
Yeah, sure. So the grant that you're talking about is called the SAFER grant. It's a grant specifically, and Deputy Keen, I got to compliment him while we're talking about it because he did a ton of work to get us that grant and did a great job. So. But that grant it's a federal grant. It's specifically for staffing to try to get departments closer to the NFPA 1710 standards for staffing. So we did apply for that grant. We got it's a competitive grant. We actually got in on it. We got 4 positions out of that. So that covers those 4 positions for 3 years. It doesn't cover small things like salary increases based on contractual stuff. So there's some small fees associated with it. The grant was, Deputy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say it was $1,034,000.
Just over a million.
Yeah. So it covers salary and in benefits for 3 people. And again, talking some of the negative things about COVID, but one of the positive things with this happening, they actually waived the municipality's contribution requirement for that grant. So typically the municipality would be required to pay 25% of that for the first 2 years, and then I believe somewhere in the area of 75% of that on the 3rd year, and they actually waived that. So
Wow.
for where we're going to do it, we picked a really good time, I think. So for those reasons.
We actually do have a question from the gallery, and we're going to try seeing how this works.
I can't see the question, so you're going to have to tell me. Oh.
Nah, no worries. Mark, can you hear me or no? No, he can't. So hold on a minute. We're gonna promote Mark, and then we're gonna promote Mark here and give him a second. Mark, you just want to unmute yourself, Mark, and ask a question of the chief. Oh, maybe.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
Sorry. Chief, thank you. Deputy Chief Keen, thank you. Thank you guys for being there. Mike, thank you as always.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mike, hang on. I did have the question, but now
the question was about staffing.
Staffing. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've got so many questions tonight.
Oh, no.
When do you feel you're going to be fully staffed? And that would include the grant, I guess you want to say. When's the outlook to be up to snuff, I guess you want to say?
Yeah, sure. So, and again, a lot of this is there's variables that we can't control. Like I was just talking about the fire academy. So I'm hoping, I'm anticipating maybe December or maybe around this time next year.
Right.
By the time, because part of the problem too is, and I don't think I mentioned this earlier, is right now the civil service list, usually they do a civil service exam and produce a new list every 2 years, right? The civil service list that's out right now has been there for almost 3 years now, and it's pretty much exhausted. I've sent out multiple times, and I've got nobody coming even signing up for an interview. It's unbelievable. My point is that that new list was supposed to come out this past December, then it got pushed to mid-February, and I just got an email a few days ago that now it's pushed to mid-March. So we can't really hire until that list comes out. And then again, my other thought process is I think when that list actually comes out, there's going to be multiple fire departments all trying to hire people at the same time, because a lot of them are in a similar situation to us. And I have a feeling that's going to backlog the fire academy. So, I'm trying to be realistic. I'm maybe thinking about this time next year. I hope it's earlier than that, but not to ramble on. Hopefully I answered your question.
No, that's fine.
Okay, so Mark, are you good? I'm sorry. Can you just state your name and address if we're going to do this officially?
Mark Sweeney, Laura Lane.
Right. Mark, I'm going to put. I'm sorry. Did you have another question, Mark?
Yeah, I do. I had it again.
Take your time. It's all good.
No, let me go on.
Sorry, Mark. Just raise your hand and
Yeah, I'll do that again.
We'll get back to you again. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I guess one of the that kind of brings up this. That's you and I have always kind of talked about that about the staffing issues, and it's a in the town of Norton we do have the requirement that you go to the civil service exam and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that always came as shock to me is once you find the candidates that it's a full year of onboarding that to really get them. I just figured it was okay, they'll ride along,
Right.
You won't haze them. I was gonna say haze them, but that's the wrong word. No, they would learn everything. What kind of training do they go for besides the academy? If they're waiting for an academy class, what kind of training are you doing? Because I know how many new individuals do you have now?
We have 4 right now.
Okay, and what's their training look like right now?
So we actually have a formal process that we put in place a while back for when we do hire new people. So they get an orientation here on their first day, and they also get a task book. And their task book actually spells out every single thing that they need to do on each day that they're working. And that gets them prepared for the fire academy. So it makes the fire academy easier for them. So they'll already know a lot of the stuff that they're going to learn, and be able to practice it. Elaborate on it a little bit more when they get there, obviously. But it goes through the whole process, and we have strict driver training requirements. There's all the process in there of how many times they have to drive the apparatus before somebody's allowed to drive an apparatus. And actually, as a manpower, they typically have to drive that apparatus with a driver trainer at least 10 times. They have to take 2 quizzes on where all equipment is on there. They also have to do a quiz on the operations and the limitations of that specific apparatus. And then they actually have to demonstrate that they can pump it or use it, or if it's a ladder, so on and so forth. And then the last step to that is they actually have to go out with our driver training instructor and do a predetermined course and pass that test as well. So we do similar things for quizzes for the ambulances and that sort of thing as well. And they also have to do street quizzes, street familiarization quizzes, and all that kind of stuff. So we do training in every pretty much area that you could think of, from policies to tying knots to throwing ladders to driving to where the streets are.
So that's where you'd lose me as a candidate. I would just be like, I'd lose the street quiz altogether.
Catch on to it after a while.
We talked about the grant program, and that was one of the things that was really one of the challenges. Obviously, maybe you can talk about your budgeting process a little bit, but I know managing headcount has always been a challenge, and I thought that was a great thing about the grant program as well.
Yeah,
cover those salaries for the 3 years, which one of the years they were onboarding. One of the 3 years we're just onboarding them.
right. And that's what's huge, because that gives us a jump of a year if we were going to do this 2 or 3 years from now. And that's the whole purpose of the grant, is to try to get people in, so that if the town thought they're going to be able to afford to hire 4 or 8 or whatever people down the road, this allows you to do that sooner and get up to that adequate staffing level. So and speaking of grants too, there's been a lot of other grants. We've really started pursuing grants aggressively over the past year. We've gotten a couple of Department of Fire Service grants for between $5,000 and $10,000 for certain gear items and personal protective items and that sort of thing. The SAFER grant, which we just talked about, we've received 2 media grants to the cable access centers in town here. So really appreciative to them. They've always been supportive of us. We did just receive a DFS earmark not too long ago, which is going to help to purchase a new generator for the town hall and fire station. And we also went after, it's called CPE, it's Community Public Expenditure, if my memory is correct. And I thought that was what we were talking about with the MIH thing a little while ago. But anyway, so that's money that we put in for reimbursement through that program that we found. And it's looking like we're going to get $134,000 just for submitting that. So that'll be money that'll just come back into our ambulance account that we can utilize. So I think that's, we're really excited about all that stuff happening. I think it's great for the town too. We're trying to save money where we can. And we're working on 2 other grants. We're working on a regional FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant for new portable radios for everybody.
Yep.
If we get awarded that, that'll be probably over $300,000 worth of radio equipment that we'll receive. That's in progress right now. And we're also looking to do an FM Global grant for fire prevention stuff within the next couple of months as well.
That's good stuff. I do have a question. I'm going to promote Zach Tellis here. Hold on one second. I feel like I'm on a talk show radio. Hey Zach, just unmute yourself and say your address and then ask your question.
Good evening.
Hey Zach, how are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Question, great job on getting the grants and for the firefighters. But my question is, how do we keep them after the grant expires? That's going to be the second $1 million question.
Yeah.
It's great that we have them, but I want to keep them. So, is there continuing grants, or is it up to the town to come up with that money 3-4 years down the line? How do we? And I know you're going to get there, but we've opened and closed Charlie Station. I don't even know, half a dozen times. How do we keep it open?
Right. And that's one of the main reasons that we actually put in for this grant, so that we can build up our manpower to a point where we can open that station. And like you said, it's been open and closed more times than you can count. And, when we open it, we want to keep it open. It definitely takes a little bit longer to get over to that side of town. And we're in favor of opening it, and we're aggressively working towards it. And that was part of the reason that we went after that grant. So once we get those people in, unfortunately, it takes a little while to get them in cycles so we can count them towards manpower. But the later we wait to start that process, the longer that process is going to take, obviously. So if we get up to that point, that's going to allow us to keep the minimum staffing that we need to keep that station open, and also be able to absorb a little bit of shock as we go. So if somebody gets hurt and they're out for a couple of months, or somebody retires or something like that, because again, it takes that almost a year to get that person spot replaced. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, after 3 years, when that grant is up, I'm saying, where's this money going to come from? Are you going to be looking for the town to come up with it at that point, or are you looking for another grant to continue it on?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Sorry, I missed that. We're going to have to come up with a plan for it as it gets closer. The good news is we have a little bit of time to plan for that. We've gotten this that CPE grant that I was telling you about, which is $134,000. I'm hoping that'll stay pretty consistent to that amount over the years. So maybe we can apply that money towards those positions when that time comes. Our ambulance rates progressively go up. Our ambulance is not getting any slower. We're doing more calls and typically generating more revenue every year. On average, it goes up $150,000 each year. So, obviously we don't want to tap that account dry, but my initial thought would be maybe those are some good avenues that we could look at to keep those positions maintained.
Well, for the record, I'm over here on Richmond Drive, if you know where that is.
I do.
I couldn't be any further from the fire station.
Yeah.
Hey.
If I dial 911, just send a hearse.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, stop.
We'll take good care of you. Don't worry.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Zach. We appreciate it. We've got a couple other questions here, but before I promote them to ask the question, obviously I saved the Chartley question to one of the, because that's the $1 million question. And I think that's one of the things I think you did a great job explaining, is that this grant has allowed us ability 3 years so we can start building up towards that. Mm-hmm. One of the questions I have, there are just 2 questions. How many fire departments did we have back in the day? I mean, they weren't as full service as obviously Burgess is now. but how many did we have back in the day? I'm trying to recall. I can think of probably 4, I think. And what's right now, what do you estimate the call times to different parts of the town are?
Yeah, I did some research on this a while ago. We don't have great software for that kind of stuff, but even just using like Google Maps and different things like that, it's probably about 4 minutes longer to get to the west side of town when you go out to the extreme areas, like Zach was saying, like Richmond Drive, or that area, or West Hodges Street, East Hodges Street, way out down that area. It could take up to about 11 minutes, and that's the extreme, town border. If you go to the east side, the further out parts are probably about 7 to 8 minutes to get to. Most people fall somewhere in between there, but those are extreme cases out on the perimeter of our town.
Yeah. Deputy Chief, can you answer the $1 million trivia question? How many fire departments way back in the day do you?
He's a good person to ask that one.
Sean was squirreling away from that question.
Well, when I first got on, there was actually 5 stations.
5 stations.
Yeah, there was probably 65 to 70 callmen, part-timers. And when I got on, there was, so that was in 76. There was 12 firefighters on the department at one time. But it was augmented by the 70 or so callmen. But back in the 70s, they really operated all 5 stations, and then they started to close the Grove station, the Barrowsville station, and the Winnie Cunnitt station, and they just operated from the station 1, and the center station was actually where the senior center is now, and
yeah.
I do remember working the Winnie Cunnitt station, but that was, I believe, around 1980 that closed. So. But at one time it was the responses were excellent because you had all these part-time employees that lived in their section of town and were able to drive to the station and pick up the truck. But
right.
Certainly that's not the way we operate today in today's society.
Now, I think we're going to talk a little bit more about response times when we get into talking a little bit about the regional center and what the resources, the tools that they're going to be able to give to us. But I did have Peter Wiggins waiting so patiently, so I'm going to promote him to ask his question. Peter, when you come on board, just unmute your phone and 1 second. There he is. Just unmute your unmute the line, Peter, and ask your question.
Yes. I have this newspaper article from the Sun Chronicle from February 3rd, 1975, and it was on Saturday, February 1st, 1975. There was a Norton open house at the Chartley station that day, and Chief George Burgess back then said there have been an increase of 20% in emergency calls over the past year, which is back in 1974. And he said that by 1977, men on the ambulance cannot be used as firefighters. And wow.
There you go, Peter. Thank you very, very much.
Welcome.
1 second, let me. This is there we go. Currently, all your everyone that you hire is also a paramedic. Is that true, Chief?
That's correct. That's the way we've been doing it for a while. That's part of the other thing that's making it more challenging to be able to hire people too. It's trying to get people that are paramedics.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people know what the ambulance account is. Can you maybe explain to the group in more detail? You talk about it so much, but people, I know it comes up once a year. We're going to transfer money out of the ambulance account, and the first time I thought of it, I was like, well, doesn't that go to buying a new ambulance? I mean,
it does actually, yeah.
Right. I had no idea what the ambulance account really was until you get into it. So
yeah, basically that's where the revenue goes from ambulance billing into that account. And we use it to offset our budget, and we also use it for capital purchases too, just like you said, like ambulances and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I guess the one of the major questions that's been out there is, what is it going to take? And we started to talk a little bit about it on Charlie. You think is it your goal to do? I know maybe you did a little history of opening and closing of Charlie, the way that you understand it and so forth, and what your goals are, and so forth for possibly opening another station or not even. I don't even know if it's there, but I know there's been a lot of interest in that.
Yeah, kind of like Zach had said earlier, the station's been open and closed for the better part of the last decade. It's pretty much been closed other than a few months here and there. It was open for a couple of months, about a year-ish and a year and a half or so ago. And the overtime money we were just blowing through it. There was no way we're going to be able to sustain that. Utility costs, these little things you might not even think of, but our electric bill went up 400% just in those few months, for having that station open. So those are the things that we're trying to calculate. I have those. I have put those in my budget requests for next year, anticipating that we possibly open it for halfway through the fiscal year. So like I said earlier, I'm hoping sometime around this time next year we can do that once we get those safer grant members hired and trained up, and we can count them towards manpower.
So on a shift, how many? So what does that look like on a shift on the way? How does that break down? How many men how many women do you have? How many firefighters do you have that are on a shift in the Burgess station, and how would they separate from vice versa?
Yeah, so right now we again on paper we have 9 people on a shift. We don't have 9 people that can come to work that are assigned to that shift, right? So so we have 2 shifts that are operating at 7, and we have 2 shifts that are operating at 8. So generally speaking, we run between 7 to 8 people on a shift at a time during the day.
Okay.
So
and so over there they would have what, 3?
Correct. Yes.
They would have 3 over there.
Yep.
Once you're fully manned, though, so altogether it would be 11. You need 11 firefighters to be able to man that. Is that accurate? Or
no? We would split some of the manpower from here down to that side town. Yeah. So
okay.
My thought is if we can maintain 8 people on duty consistently and be able to absorb an injury or a retirement, then I think we're in good shape to keep that station open. And that's what we're working towards, right now. We're trying to go as quick as we can. We can only hire people so quickly and get them trained and stuff like that. But I think the good news is that we are working towards it, and we have a plan, and we're trying to stick to that plan. And when we do open it, we want to keep it open consistently. So
the working station now, it is a working station now. I know.
Yeah.
I believe.
We actually just opened it the other night for the weather.
Yeah. So
yeah.
You do
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you do it every storm, or do you do it when do you decide?
Yeah, so we'll start talking about it a couple of days before the storm and try to keep an eye on it. So if we have a significant storm that's coming in where we think it's going to increase response times to that area even more, then we'll make the decision to open that station. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So I know that you've recently, you've talked about one of the things you talked about is the FEMA communications grant that you might be going for and so forth. I know one of the big things the town is just meeting both the fire department and the police department went to this past year is the regional communications or dispatch center. Like how's that going? I mean, is it? I know there was when I put the post out, I know there was some concerns, but I wanted to basically put it out there for you and kind of just talk there. And did you say we had someone from the regional? Possibly from the regional center.
Yeah, the director should be on that.
What's the director's name?
Rob Verdon.
Yeah, I actually do see Mr. Verdon. Hold on one second. I didn't say that I was tech savvy here, so be patient with me. There he is. Yeah, and I'm going to actually, Mr. Verdon, I'm going to promote you to kind of add into the discussion. And so, Sean, when did we make the jump over to as he comes on board? How long ago did we make the change over to the regional communication?
Yeah, we changed over in December, all the way.
Okay.
Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was October we actually changed our 911 going over to the regional dispatch center.
That is correct.
Mr. Verdone, would you just introduce yourself and your title and all that?
Sure. I'm Rob Verdone. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeastern Massachusetts Regional 911 District.
Oh, great. Thank you. I appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Talking with the community. So I cut you off, and as Sean just threw you over, about how long ago did you come? How long ago did Norton make the transfer over from police and then fire?
Sure. So in mid-October, we actually started taking the 911 calls and shut down the PSAP side of the Norton operation, which is the 911 operation. And our staff started actually taking that role on in partnership with the town of Norton Dispatch Center. And then in the beginning of the year, we took on the full operation after we moved up to our new facility in Foxborough. So it's been a couple months, and we have full operations now.
How many individuals do you have that are answering? So what towns are in the? Maybe start there. What towns are in the regional communication center?
Sure. So we service Foxborough, Mansfield, Easton, and Norton, as well as Bristol County Fire Control.
Okay, great. And how's the chief? How's from your perception? What successes that we have? What challenges that you think are coming down that we're working on that you and Mr. Barone and their group are working on? And what successes and challenges have we seen? That you could maybe share with the group.
Yeah, I think it's going well. One of the great things is that we've really been able to, increase our resources in technology. We now have mobile data terminals in our apparatus, which is you can see where you're going and information about the call in there. We just upgraded our station alerting system as a result of that. We've upgraded our incident reporting system as a result of that. 911 calls. Rob can probably speak to this a little bit better than me. But location accuracy is increased tremendously with the new system. They take pride in what they do. We have a really good working relationship, with them and especially their administrative staff, who are the people that I deal with most often. So,
yeah. Mr. Verdone, what are you seeing as some of the, the surprisingly, obviously you guys had a lot of success as the transition's gone very well. What are some of the successes and challenges that you're seeing right now as Norton's coming on and so forth?
Sure. So it was a really successful transition. We couldn't have asked for a better and smoother transition. To move a 911 center out of town and move just a 911 center in general we called it changing the wings on an airplane while it was in the air. We can't let 911 go down for a second. It's critical. We can't have somebody back us up. We can't have, it's not like the fire service, police department where we can have a neighboring town come and cover us. We really have no tolerance for downtime. And we accomplished that. We moved 4 towns, both locations. We moved our operations center, and we took on Norton and Easton recently with 0 downtime. And we did that through planning and partnership with another regional center out in Duxbury. We're fully redundant with them. And that transition we didn't miss a beat, which was fantastic. As we progressed, we're starting to we have taken on Norton's responsibilities, and my staff knows the town. A lot of them are from Norton or lived in Norton or familiar with Norton. Just the nuance and the personality and getting used to certain quirks, if you will, with the different towns and just how certain people operate. We standardize a lot of things, but human nature is just to have ways of doing things. And as we build that partnership and relationship between our team and their team, it's actually going very well. But that's kind of the challenge I had is just navigating that through COVID. With Foxborough Mansfield, we're able to do ride-alongs and have in-person co-meetings and co-trainings between the departments. But with COVID, that's been prohibitive. And this is as intimate as a training gets is through Zoom and other digital means. So we're excited to get through COVID, kind of loosen up the regulations with that, and actually start to interact on a more human level with our communities and get out in the field, see the towns a little better, and keep that relationship building.
Oh, that's great. There's a question in. I'm going to allow Zach to speak here if he wants. Zach.
Yeah, question for you. In past years, when you dial 911 from a cell phone, you had you got the state police. Is that still the case, or does that call automatically routed to the new dispatch center?
So we are a wireless center, which means that we do take those calls directly. There are some instances where for certain reasons where you still could go to the state wireless center or the former state police 911 center, but largely those calls are being routed to us, and that we set that up that way just as a safe, a stopgap, if you will, just in case your cell phone doesn't transmit location data. We'd prefer you go to the state first versus get into Attleboro's PSAP and then have to be transferred that way. But we did transition to being fully wireless. We're a fully next generation 911 center, which is the state of Massachusetts is one of the first in the nation to be a next generation 911 state. And that allows us to not only get your location data, but actually dial it down to the sub 3 meter confidence, which is huge. So we could tell if you're in a parking lot, we can tell which parking lot, what parking space you're in. And we're getting a bunch of other data, such as like if you're in an Uber, we're able to see your Uber information, the driver's information, the license plate, your route, and things like that. If you have a medical alert bracelet associated with your cell phone, we're able to pull all that data in as well. And there's a whole host of other data feeds that we're starting to integrate. Anything from your cell phone accelerometer having a large G event or a ambient temperature that's elevated. Maybe we can't talk to you, but we know that your cell phone was traveling 70 miles per hour on the highway, had a sudden stop, and now is 200 degrees. We might assume that you were involved in an accident and there's some kind of fire or something. And we're able to dial it down to sub 3 meters, which is 9 feet, which is incredible.
That's pretty
It's a tremendous amount of data, and that just scratches the surface of what we're able to do here. And we're blessed to have the opportunities to do that and provide to the communities. So that was a long answer to your very simple question. I apologize.
No, it was very good. Thank you very much.
So I guess one of the things that I'm excited about, I was very worried, and I would be lying if I said I wasn't a critic of getting away from the local dispatch centers. Obviously I felt because of local employments. I have two questions, really fold. I know that when Norton had their dispatch center, they would know when to send a police officer and when not to send a police officer. How managing, and I know every town has a different policy. How do you manage that from a town's perspective? How does the dispatch, the regionalized dispatch handle that?
Sure. So we've aligned a lot of the policies. Like I said, we've standardized a lot, and through training and policy, we address those things. Most of the communities are actually a lot closer in the policies than you would assume on its face. So this organization was founded in 2017, and I was hired in 2017. And basically, the concept was a yellow legal pad with a bunch of scribbles that said, "Hey, we want to do this," and we got to this beautiful building with a great staff, and we're live. But over those 4 years, was a tremendous amount of collaboration between the departments, planning. We've deployed a ton of technology. But really what it comes down to is we have great staff that's well trained. We have 24/7 supervisors that are monitoring everything. And Norton has policies that are a little divergent from the other towns, and we adapt to those nuanced policies, and it's no different. We don't just guess. It's very professional and data driven and policy driven. I can't say that we haven't had a couple critics, and I think that's healthy for a community to be critical of a change like that. And I actually applaud it. I'm happy to always talk about what people's concerns are and how we adapt to them, or how we could adapt to them. Maybe something I don't know. But it's important to know that we are your local PSAP. We are your local dispatch center still. We might not be in Norton anymore, but we are certainly Norton's dispatch and 911 center, part of the community. And we embrace that. Our staff is extremely passionate about the community and serving them and doing a really good job. So,
and one of the things, and I'll let you both respond to this, and I'll start with Chief. If someone has a complaint about the regionalized, how would you recommend a citizen saying, okay, how would we start that? I know we had some concerns on, I think there was, and I don't want to dig too deep into this. I know there's some concerns like, oh, they weren't picking up the phone quick enough, and I don't want to get into the specific incidents, but if someone has concerns that they feel like with the dispatch center, obviously they may bring it up with you, but of a resident of Norton, how would you recommend handling those concerns or so forth?
I mean, I would say this, my thought would be for them to call us, and talk to us about it. And then we would call SEMREC and discuss it with them from there.
Okay.
Unless I suppose they could try to go on their website, maybe go that angle, but I think it would be better for them to come through us and have us talk to them and kind of go from there,
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because it's you guys are measured at you guys are measured beyond a perfection scale, right? I mean, it's you can't mess any. It's almost like there's zero mistakes you guys can make, but you guys do an amazing job with the number of calls and so forth and handling it. No, that's great. I know, Chief. Also, I know that you and I were speaking about some of the research that you're going to be able to get now from the dispatch center on response times, right? Could you maybe expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we're switching over to a new platform when we went over live with SEMREC in December. So our whole incident reporting system is new. The amount of information that we're going to be able to pull out of that, it just blows away the other system. Like we talked about response times, I can't get exact number of how many calls we have in the Chartley area versus now, but down the road we will actually be able to do that. So I think that's awesome, and that system also does a lot of other stuff for us too, that we're still, we're not accessing every part of it yet that we can. We're trying to slowly work it in, but that can track our training. It can track our equipment inventory, our equipment and vehicle maintenance. Eventually, down the road, we'll be able to run a cost on a specific fire engine and find out, how many times that year that fire truck got fixed and how much was each repair, and is it starting to cost, more money than it's worth or whatever, just types of stuff like that, So I think we're going in the right direction with a lot of the technology stuff that we're working on.
Right. To the audience, are there any questions or concerns before we let Mr. Verdone go at all? Or I don't see any or any hands raised. Mr. Verdone, do you want to leave us with any parting? We appreciate you coming on and kind of introducing yourself. It's always great to put the name with the face, and want to make. I think it's important to keep the regional dispatch center as part of Norton as well. So I hope in the future you're open to always coming back and answering any questions, concerns that the town has, and just more updates even of the advances that's going on with your group over there.
Absolutely. I'm happy to join you anytime, speak to the town, select board meetings, or any venue really. I love talking about the agency. I love talking about the good work we do. And we do like hearing, not that we like hearing complaints, but we like to hear the concerns and kind of, we truly dissect. If we get a complaint, we're dissecting. We rip it apart, see if there's, if it's founded, unfounded, and if there's any indication that there's actually an issue, we tear it apart and try and identify why and where there's issues and fix them. We have a whole training and QA department, and it's something we take pride in. We're actually compelled to do it as well. So it's not something that we are intrinsically motivated to ensure our quality, but like just to speak to like answer times, being a next gen system, you can see it behind me now. We have strict standards that are federal standards to meet, and they're checked in real time. So like if we don't answer a call in a certain amount of time and we don't meet our performance standards, not only do I get a report, and thankfully we haven't been outside of standards at all and since we opened, but if we ever are, the state gets a call, an email, FCC gets an email, I get an email, our QA team gets an email. So there's very slim tolerances for being outside of this performance. We can't just let a phone ring for 30 seconds and say, whatever, the 911 phone, we'll get that when we get to it. It's we jump on everything. We strive for that perfection. This is a very dynamic industry, and obviously the nature of emergencies doesn't allow for it. But we strive to make sure that we hit the mark every time. But happy to be here. We are your 911 center, and we really want to be part of the community. Part of the goals for this year is to kind of get out and we're done with the building project, and we have a little bit more time on our hands to do more community outreach, and as COVID allows and stuff, get out into the schools, get out into the community, and kind of teach people 911, how to call it, how to kind of take care of yourself before help arrives, and those kinds of things. So,
Well,
from us over the next year.
I want to make sure that you get an invite to one of our town meetings coming up, and I'll make sure personally that you do, and hopefully maybe you can tend to set up a table where people can stop by, introduce themselves, and get to you as well, and just find out what you and your team are working on. So
Great.
Appreciate it again. Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
So we're coming up on the finishing time here, gentlemen. I know I know it's been a lot of fun. I would leave it up to both of you gentlemen. Thank you very much for what you do in your service to the town. Sean, did you want to kind of wrap it up with, just any outreaches, or just this is your minute in fame. Not that you want a moment of fame.
Yeah, no, I just real quick anyway, I won't keep people, I appreciate your thanks. Honestly, I want to thank all of the members of our department, publicly here. They do an awesome job. They work hard every single day. They have pride in what they do. COVID has just made things so much more difficult. They've all been dealing with that for over a year now. Being diligent about wearing their personal protective equipment. Just going out there and still providing the same high level of care that our community deserves and expects, So, I just want to say thank you to them. Thanks to you to setting this up. I appreciate everybody that took the time out of their busy days and nights to be on here, and I really enjoy answering the questions. So, if anybody's out there and you ever have a question, or we can do anything to help you, please feel free to call me. You don't have to wait for one of these type of formats to come up. So, my contact information is right on our website, and I'm happy to talk with anybody at any time, honestly. So we appreciate the community support.
And if there are any questions from any attendees, this would be the time. Speak up. We've covered a full range of subjects. It sounds like I think this is the first time we've really seen a defined plan for Chartley. And I'm excited. It's not going to be built overnight, but it's something that we're working towards, and I think that's going to be a message that's well received. And I think to Mr. Tallis's questions, then once we get to come up with a plan, it will be how do we keep it long-term funded, and I think that's up for the town to decide how we do that. Last time I checked, Chief Simmons, you don't have magic dust that you can just make money.
No. Still looking for it though, but
there we go. There we go. Well, Deputy Chief,
we'll keep trying to find creative ways to get funding for different things, and getting grants helps. That's money that we don't have to tap into something else for too. So we'll keep working on that on our end on that.
Thank you, and we just had a thank you from one of the representatives, Christine DeBoa, and thank you, Deputy Chief Keene, for your time and your service, and Chief Simmons, you've always had an open door policy with the Board of Selectmen and myself. You've slapped me around when I try to pretend that I know more than I know, so I appreciate your time, and this was fun. It was a good way to get what you guys are working on out there, and we'll hopefully have it broadcasted on the cable channel as well.
Excellent.
Thank you, gentlemen. You have a good day, and God bless.
All right. Thank you all, and have a good night.